morning, everyone. Welcome to VUS Tesol Webinars 2020. My name is Quốc and I'll be your host today. Before we start, can I check if all of you hear me well? If yes, please type yes in the chat box. Thanks. It seems that we're on good to start. Okay, this free webinar series is held by VUS with the participation of ELT experts and invited speakers from well-known publishing houses such as Oxford University Press, Macmillan Education, National Geographic Learning, and Cambridge Assessment English. We hope to bring you the most updated and practical teaching methods and techniques so that you can teach your class more effectively, especially during this coronavirus pandemic. So thank you for joining us in today's webinar. It's a bit impersonal, isn't it? A bluffer's guide to debunking online teaching myths, presented by Mr. Shaun Wilden from Oxford University Press. Before we start, please be informed that we will have the Q&A session at the end of the webinar. And also during that time, I will send you the links for you to complete a survey about this webinar and to download your certificate of participation. And now let me introduce to you Mr. Shaun Wilden. Now over to you, Shaun.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Rather than a yes, in the chat box, could you put a color for me? So rather than writing yes, could you just put a color in the chat box? Good afternoon. Hi, everyone. Let me, I need to just put my slides on. Hang on a minute while I change over my slides. Let's see. Hopefully you can see my slides now. Good afternoon, everyone. Hi. Hi. Everybody see my slides okay? Everybody ready to begin? Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Right then. Great. Let me just move the chat box where I can see it a little bit better. Fabulous. Great. Hi, everyone. So we're going to be using the chat box a lot today. Okay. So I'm going to obviously talk to you, but I'd like you to participate with me as well in the chat box. We're going to play a couple of games. We're going to keep ourselves entertained as we go through this talk. Okay. So just be ready and ready to go. So I called this talk the Bluffer's Guide to Online Teaching. And I'm doing that because I think over the last, well, depending where you are in the world, 5 to 6 to 7 weeks, it's been a very strange time. And education has gone from being something done in a physical space to being online. And all of a sudden, teachers around the world have to become experts in a field they weren't necessarily trained in. I say it's a strange time because for me, I've been teaching online for about 10 years. So as you can imagine, over the last few weeks, I've been quite busy helping teachers getting ready to be online. And then I thought, now that we're getting to this point where we can reflect about where we are, I would present where we are with it, what people think about it, and teach you how to become an online expert. But I'll come back to that in a moment. Let's do a warm-up. All good talks, all good lessons begin with a warm-up. Yeah. So in the chat box, please, what do you think this is? You should be able to see a picture on your screen. So what do you think this is? Can you pop into the chat box any ideas you think this might be? Anybody want to give me a go? Notes, thank you. There's a nice start. A book. It's a good start as well. A note, a box. Jessica, can you see it properly? Notes. Yep. Okay. So this is my warm-up activity, and this is a lot of people have got notes and notebooks. Shall I give you? I'll give you some information. So it's a box, as Jessica said, a masterpiece of art. That's lovely. It's a box. It's a normal cardboard box that has been painted by my son. So my son is 5.5, and he's currently downstairs. You might hear him as this talk goes on. And And you can see on the box there is there's a paper clip and a bulldog clip, and in that clip there are some pieces of paper. So this is something that we've been doing we're in week 5 of lockdown in the UK. So this is something we've been doing for 5 weeks. And we're lucky in the UK that while we're locked down, we can go out for exercise. So we're allowed out once a day. But of course, everything is closed. So this is our box for wishes. This is a wish box. And on the piece of paper, we write down things that we want to do after the lockdown is over. So for example, I have written on there, go to my favorite restaurant. I think my son wrote yesterday, go to Legoland. So what's in your wish box? So for your warmer today, when the world gets back to normal, what would you put in your wish box? When we have a haircut, yeah, no, I know that feeling. So what would you write in your wish box for it? Go back to school. Oh, that's a real teacher response. Go back to school. Any other ideas? Have a haircut. There's a lot of long hair in Vietnam. Eat street food. Oh, yes, Vietnamese street food is amazing. Go to a bookshop, cafe, eat, meet new people. Teach offline. I wish it was cooler today. Well, it is here. It's absolutely pouring down. I don't know if you can see the rain above me. Coffee shop. Yes, I remember. I was in Vietnam about 6 years ago, and I do remember the coffee shops and street food. Bliss, is that the rain? Splurge on clothes. Reunite with, oh, that must be terrible. Lockdown without your partner. That must be horrible. Okay, so hopefully that's got you warmed up a little bit. You can see, go traveling. Yeah. So this is an exercise I do with my students just to remind ourselves of what things we can do. It just takes a little photograph and I use it in my lessons from time to time. And we just remind ourselves of what we can put into the wish box. Okay, everybody warmed up then? So let's do another exercise and then we'll crack on with the talk. Okay, so in the chat box, I'm going to ask you to write a number. Okay, just a number. I'm not going to ask you to justify your number. So wait, hang on, wait for the list. So I'm going to show you some words, and the number you write is how many of those words you know. Okay, so I'm going to show you the list, and into the chat box, I'd like you to put how many of those words you know. There you go. So you write any number you like. How many of these words would you claim to know? And don't worry, I'm not going to ask you to prove it. Okay, so there you can see the words: contact tracing, elbow bump, flatten the curve, infodemic, PPE, R0. So we've got 5 as our first offer, 8, 10, 6, 4, 9, 11. There's a big claim, 11. Nobody's gone for 12. 22. That's a little bit of an exaggeration there. 7, 5. Okay, brilliant. All right. How many of these do you know? These are all, I guess you've realized, these are all words that are currently used a lot in the English language. And in fact, they are all entering the dictionary. And you can see at the bottom there, I've given you the link to where they are. So these are all words that have suddenly appeared with great regularity in the Oxford English Dictionary. I have to confess, when Catherine, you've gone for 12, well done. I have to confess that when I first saw this list, number 4, infodemic, I wasn't sure what that was, and I had to look it up. And an infodemic is the spread of misinformation and information around the world, like a pandemic for it. I am not going to tell you what they mean. You can look them up yourself, or you can use your chat box to teach each other them. But what I wanted to do was see how many people would put 12. And in fact, only one of you did, which tells me that I've got a very honest audience with me, but also an audience that doesn't want to bluff. So I called this talk the Bluffer's Guide to Teaching Online. I'm not sure if you know the word bluff, but to bluff is, is if you're playing cards or something, is to try and convince people you know more about something than you actually do, which might seem a negative thing. But the Bluffer's Guide is a well-known set of books in the UK. And here you can see the Bluffer's Guide to Horse Racing, Archaeology, wide. They are books that are meant to be humorous, but they also provide information for dealing with situations. So, for example, well, you can see here from Wikipedia that there's a series of books which has been going for about 60 years now. And over that time, they've sold 5 million copies of the books. Okay, so they've sold 5 million copies of the books. And they would advertise themselves as never be found for wanting for information again, knowing what to say, not what to say. Let me give you an example of it. So here's one from the book on etiquette. And I've picked this bit about because it is this very strange English phrase, how do you do? So the Bluffer's Guide always presents you with a situation and tells you what not to say and what to say. So in this case, in this example, if you're in polite society, one should say, how do you do? Not pleased to meet you. And of course, the response to how do you do is ridiculously, how do you do? So the Bluffer's Guide gives you that information. Now, as I said, we've been working online for a month or so. And what interests me is that I hear the same things coming up over and over again, these myths about online education. So I Googled myths about online education. And as you can see here, there are, if you see just at that top of the page there are 87 million pages on the internet which deal with myths about online education, which I think is rather a lot. And you can see that if you look at this there, it's 7 myths, 8 myths, 9 myths, 10 myths about it. So what I've done is I've gone through this and I've found the most common 8 myths about online teaching. Okay, and I'm about to teach you what to say and what not to say in that situation. So let's get going. Myth number 1, you hear it all the time, is you have to be tech savvy. Okay, to be an online teacher and to be an online student, you have to be tech savvy. Let's see if you agree. In the chat box, who agrees with that? Do you agree that's a myth or it's a truth? Is it a myth or a truth? You have to be tech savvy. What do you think? True, a myth. Good for the people say not really. That's a good answer. Not really. Myth, definitely. Okay, so remember in the Bluffer's Guide, we have to say what you don't say and what you do say. So let's look at the don't say. So don't say students these days are digital natives. Okay. Don't say students these days are digital natives. I think we often get fooled as teachers into thinking our students are better digitally than they actually are. Okay, we see all the time in media, with educational companies using this phrase digital natives. The idea that I'll say younger because I'm quite old, the younger generations are more savvy with their technology, that they know what they're doing, that being online is natural to them. I think as teachers, if we take that point of view, we are leading ourselves into trouble. Okay, I think as teachers, if you know that we assume that they are digital natives, we're going to lead ourselves down a path which will cause us more stress. In my introduction, on the introduction side, you see that one of the things that I do is digital literacy. In fact, I lecture here at the university in Oxford on digital literacy. And it's very interesting because I lecture postgraduate students. And we run a specific model to postgraduate students here. So they're already graduates in how to understand how to be digital literate. So in other words, these people don't know how to work online properly. And I think that's a good assumption to make with students. If we look at the Oxford University Press position paper on global skills, we get this kind of definition of digital literacy. So if somebody's a digital native, then they should be digital literate. And yes, our students might know how to use Instagram or TikTok or you know, depending on their age, Facebook, those kind of things. But have our students really encountered technology in online classrooms before? Do they know how to operate in an online room? Probably not. And I think what happens for teachers is we get quite nervous in the online room, and because we think, oh, the students are going to know more than us or not know more than us. But in actuality, it's probably nervousness on both sides. The students are equally as nervous as us. And I think because we therefore think they are digital natives, we assume they know how to operate things. And I don't think that's true. So don't say students these days are digital natives. Do say, and I'm not going to read everything on that slide, I'll just pause for a moment. So do say models and typologies can be very useful, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so don't assume that people are digital natives. But if you want to use that phrase to help you understand the student, fine. But don't let it make you forget what the basic way of running a classroom is. In a face-to-face classroom, in a physical classroom, when we begin our lessons, begin our courses, begin the academic year, begin a term, we often begin by doing our classroom rules and our classroom language and the way that we're supposed to behave in the classroom. And I've noticed over the last month that teachers tend to forget this when they're working online. But in fact, our students need this language and need to operate just as well online as they would in the physical classroom. So don't forget in your first lessons, teach them the language they need to survive in the room. And here is a Zoom bingo card, which I think is very interesting, but it does give some good language that we need to teach our students about working in an online room. And in fact, language like, how do you do that? Can you do that? How can I do that? These are all things that we really should address within our first few lessons. And my first lesson online would always be about looking at how the room works. And in fact, I would create, what do you call them, can-do statements for the students. So I can switch on my mic, I can switch on my video, I can use the chat box. So let the students decide how well they can do these things, and then using breakout rooms or the plenary, get the students to discuss how these things are done. So myth number one is that the students are digital natives. Myth number two is that the teachers, myth number one extended is that the teachers are digital natives. And I think this is really interesting. Obviously, about 4 weeks ago, maybe, education decided to go into Zoom. Okay, we're on Zoom now, and Zoom became kind of the platform of choice for many educators around the world. And then 3 weeks ago, we started getting the backlash. Oh, it's unsafe. Oh, it's difficult. Oh, we can't. There are too many security issues with it. And it kind of overlooked the fact that we as educators had just moved our whole practice online within days, and nobody had taught us how to do it. Okay, so it would be good to remember, or for people to remember, what education has achieved over the last few weeks and how much we have managed to move our practice, and not make us panic about security and things like that, but help us out a little bit. So if you are using Zoom and you are worried about the security risks, here's 10 ways to make your Zoom secure. Although I must admit, personally, I really don't like the new password feature on Zoom. It makes my life more difficult. So myth number one, we need to be tech savvy. No, we need to know how to use the tech for sure, but we need to teach each other how to use it. Let's go on to myth number two. I have seen this so many times. Online students don't get to interact with their teacher. I mean, there are almost 200 of you in the room at the moment, and you have the ability to interact with me on the chat board. I mean, if I was your teacher, you could interact with me. With my class, you could go on video, we could do things like that. But I feel that this is a really big myth. So don't say, yes, it's really true, but this is my show, so why do you need to interact with me? Okay? Do say, it's not a question of don't interact, but it's a question of how we're going to interact. Is it going to be on mic? Is it going to be in chat box? If you use an asynchronous platform like Google or Classroom or something, is it going to be in a discussion board? And for my activity here, I wanted to show you, I wanted to do a personalized teacher giving the students information about the teacher exercise. So here are 4 photographs about me. Okay, you can see 4 photographs. They are from my mobile phone. I took them, I've taken them over the last 2 weeks. As I said at the beginning, in the UK, while we're locked down, we can go out for walks. So I've taken these 4 pictures, I've put them together, and for my class now on the screen, you need to identify what they show. Okay, so into the chat box, please. What do these 4 pictures show you about my time over the last 2 weeks? What have I been doing? Okay, have a guess about what I've been doing into the chat box. Can you identify anything in the pictures? Anything that stands out? Camping. No, not camping, but that's a good try. It's a good start. Think about that. Had a barbecue. Yep. Nature, cooking, collection, working. That's a really good interest. Had a barbecue in the forest. Make models. That's a really good answer. Home barbecue. Barbecue party. Everybody's avoiding. Everybody's gone for the barbecue. The deer. That's a good one. Yep. But why the deer? Online teaching. While that is true, none of these are actually work. Okay. Hunting. No, that deer in the jungle, barbecue, potatoes, video call in a room. Lovely answer there. The barbecue in the forest. No, barbecue, yes, not in the forest. Can you see the interaction that's going on? Okay. Actually, that is true. A deer went into my garden, but that is not the picture. I do live on on the back of a nature reserve. Okay, brilliant. But can you see the interaction that's going on here? I mean, this is a really personalized task. There's a lot of interaction going on. This would be exactly the same kind of task as I would do in a physical classroom as an online classroom. I'll give you the answers in a moment, but if I was doing it on chats with a class, we could do it over microphone. If I was doing it in a asynchronous environment in Google Classroom, I would do it on discussion board. If I was doing it in a physical classroom, I'd simply put it on the board. But the interaction with the students is happening. Okay, the pictures, the answers. So picture number 1, as you rightly identified, is a deer. Now, we can go out for walks every day, and about 1 kilometer from my house, there is an amazing forest. Now, in that forest, there are lots of deer. Now, while lockdown, I think everybody would agree, is horrible, I do feel there are some nice things about lockdown. One of which is I can hear the birds in the morning because I live near a big road. But also in this forest, there are deer. Now, I've been living in Oxford for about 10 years, and over 10 years, I've seen the deer 2 or 3 times. But now I pretty much see them every day because there are no people in the forest and the deer are there. So picture number 1 is my walk in the forest and I can see the deer. Picture number 2, if we go to the one next to it, you quite rightly identified as a barbecue. Thankfully, we've had really good weather while we've been locked down. And one of the things we've tried to do is keep our son entertained by doing little things. Somebody said camping, and in fact, we did camp in the garden this weekend just to be different. But here, this is a barbecue. Okay, now the picture under the deer. Were there any guesses for that? I think somebody might have said modeling. Anybody else want to come in on that? It is impossible to guess, I will assure you. Bake some cakes. If my cakes look like that, I would give up. But nice answer, Michelle. Sculptures. That's really close, Han. That's really close. They right. Bear with me. They are fossils. Rocks is a good answer. Clay. So, I told you about my son. So there is a program on YouTube every day at 11 o'clock UK time, which is aimed at young children, and it's called Let's Go Live. And it's a really interesting educational program. They take a topic and they tell you how to do things. The idea is to keep your children educated and busy. And a week or so ago, the topic was dinosaurs. And in that program, they showed you how to make fossils. So immediately the program finished, my son wanted to make fossils. So they're our fossils. And if you want the recipe, you need to take some coffee, some salt, some flour, some sand, and mix it up so it becomes like almost like a pastry kind of thing, yeah? And then into that, my son has some plastic dinosaur toys. So inside that, he pushes the toy, and then we make them round like they are potatoes, like somebody said. And then you leave them to dry for about 3 days. And when they dry, they become hard like rocks, as one of you said. And once they're hard, you can go fossil hunting. And he had a little hammer, and he chipped them open with it. Okay, so fossils. And the final picture, some people said working from home, which is a good guess. You can see the Zoom room is open in the picture. But one of my big hobbies is playing games, playing board games. If you could see my office, all around my office here, there are board games. I'm a very big board gamer. And one of the things I missed most about lockdown is being able to have friends round to play board games. So we have worked out how to play board games over Zoom. Okay, so on my table you can see the game. Above the table you can see my iPad, which is used as a camera, and then the Zoom is where we all meet and talk. Now you would agree, I think, yeah, that there's a lot of interaction gone on in this game, and so I think the myth of students not interacting. The name of the program, I'll put it into chat box. So the YouTube program is Let's Go Live, okay? And it's on YouTube, and it's broadcast in UK time, 11 o'clock every day. But obviously it's all recorded. So if you go to Let's Go Live channel, you'll find them there. Really interesting program, to be fair, made from somebody's spare room. So I hope you will agree that that there's interaction there. So myth 3 takes that a bit further. The next, so teachers say to me, online courses, we can't interact the same. Online courses offer no interaction with fellow students, which Ty Lee, excuse my pronunciation, has already said that's a myth. So don't say it's so true, there's no chance of pair work or group work. Okay, now of course it does depend on the platform you're on, but you can say, what do you think a breakout room is for? So for example, on Zoom here, we have that nice little breakout room. And if I press that button, all the students go into their own session, in their own sessions, you know, in 2s or 3s or 4s. Of course, if you're using a program like Skype or MS Teams or something like that, you can't do it. But in Zoom, there is a real nice breakout room. I'm not sure about Google Meet. I'd have to check. My inclination is not, but I don't use it enough to be able to say exactly. All right. But whether you've got a breakout room or not, if you've got a smallish class, you could do this as a whole activity. In breakout rooms, you do it. Thank you. In breakout rooms, you can do it separately. And of course, there are lots of ways we can get the students interacting together. I just told you I was a gamer, and one of the series of games I really like are escape room games. Very popular. Do you know escape rooms? Have escape rooms made it to Vietnam? You get yourself locked in a room and you have to find your way out. So in an ask the question in the Q&A box and I'll get back to the offline class question, yeah? What I like to do in my Zoom is have escape the Zoom breakout room. I'm a poet and I don't know it, okay? So escape the Zoom breakout room. So I do something like this, and this is actually from a YouTube clip, so you can see the whole puzzle. So I give the students the puzzle, and in Zoom I'd get them to take a photo so that they would go into their breakout rooms, okay? And to get out the breakout room, they have to give me the code. So once they're in the breakout room, they have to interact together to work out the code to get out. Okay. Anybody want to give me the code? Or are you all going to be stuck in a breakout room forever? So, so there is an answer. So of course the 602, no, you are wrong, but 2 of those numbers are right, but not in the right places. I'm trying to remember the answer quickly. So the students work together. The language is produced by them discussing the problem, trying to work out the problem, and then sending me a message. 862, no, that's not true. You could obviously go to the YouTube video and find the answer. No. I do appreciate everybody trying to solve the puzzle. Shall I tell you the answer, or shall I leave you in suspense to go on and find it? So tell the answer. Okay, I know that there are 200 people in the room, but I'll tell you. No, I'll tell you this: 6 is not one of the numbers. 6 is not one of the numbers. Oh, there's somebody very close there. Oh no, 80. So you see, you're doing it in the chat box, but our students would do it together. They would argue, they would talk, they would work out what it is. Congratulations. Again, I apologize for any mispronunciation, but Lee Trung Hu, Pham Tai Van, you got it right. 042. There you go. I'm clapping you on screen. So I'm going to put the answer in the 042. Okay. Brilliant. Okay, 666. Brilliant. So there's the answer. Congratulations on getting the room. If you want to see how it's worked out, then that YouTube video will have it. But again, you know, just because we're online, it doesn't stop our creativity. Teachers are good. What teachers do best is being creative. So this is just me being creative, taking an escape room, and in that, taking the puzzles of an escape room to take advantage of this breakout room idea. In the handout that that will be sent out to you of it, I've also put some links to more breakout room ideas using this escape room idea. Okay, but I think that's a lovely activity to get some action going. It's a bit different, and it makes the students start thinking about things in a different way. I love these puzzles. I love giving my students puzzles. Oh, let me just go back into the chat box then. Would you rather eat chocolate pudding or strawberry ice cream? So in the chat box, please. Would you rather eat strawberry ice cream or chocolate pudding? What would you? Everybody's go chocolate fan. Strawberry ice cream, please. Okay, so okay, thank you. Ooh, so it was chocolate pudding for a while, but strawberry ice cream came back. So in the breakout room, what I would ask my students to do is they have to agree. So you put the students together. Let's say you've got 4 students in a breakout room, and 2 say chocolate pudding and 2 say ice cream. They can't leave the breakout room till they all agree. But when they leave the breakout room, they have to agree. They have to tell me why they all agree. Because being students, I'll just go, okay, I'll say ice cream. But they have to give me a good answer and show me how they convince themselves. And one of the things I really like about lockdown, and I know that sounds odd, is the sharing of materials that is going on. Okay, and for me, Facebook has actually become this kind of resource sharing place. Obviously, a lot of my friends are teachers, but with parents being in lockdown as well, parents are suddenly sharing materials. And this is a simple would you rather exercise, and you can see the place I've taken it from there. And again, in your handout, I've given you the full link. So, you know, put the students into, I'm not suggesting you give the students the whole list, but put the students into breakout rooms and get them to argue and agree on what they would rather do. They can only do one, which would they do? If you can't do breakout rooms, this kind of task, well, if they want to stay in the breakout room, that's a great question. On Zoom, you can self-destruct the breakout room. But if they want to stay in the breakout room chatting in English, I'm going to be okay with that. But one of the good features about Zoom breakout rooms is you can press a button and close all the breakout rooms. If you can't, if you don't have breakout rooms and you want to do this activity, then this for me is also a good activity that you could do at the beginning of your online lesson. I think, you know, that first few minutes of an online lesson are always quite tense. You know, are all the students hearing me? Are they all online? And there are sometimes a few little wobbles as people come online and so on. So obviously it wouldn't be a good time to do a very major, very serious lesson activity. So I would, if for the first 5-10 minutes of my online lessons, I do something a little bit more lighthearted, which it doesn't matter then if a student is having difficulties getting in and doing the lesson. They're not going to miss anything. So this activity works for me in a breakout room, but it also works as my class warmer, and we pick one or two and we just discuss them together while the students are getting ready. So there are lots of things you could do in breakout rooms. You know, typical activities that we do in ELT: pair work, discussion, role plays, interview, problem solving. All these things that we find in our course material work very well in breakout rooms. And here's a couple of examples just from the two course books I had next to me. So that would be something I could do in the breakout room. Oops, click too fast. And that one as well would be a breakout room kind of task. Okay. So online classes aren't fun. The teacher is no fun either. That's myth number 5. Nice myth or truth? Online classes aren't fun. What do you think? Great. No, they aren't fun. Myth, it is a myth. Of course, I would argue that if online classes, excuse me, it does depend on the activities. That's a great response. I would also say it depends on the teacher. And I think if the teacher isn't fun in the physical classroom, they're probably not fun online. What I would like to say is that, you know, what I would like to think is, if you see me now, I would like to think I'm quite energetic. This is how you would, you know, what you see of me online and what you see of me in a physical classroom are the same. But there are a number of things we could do. So let's go to our don't say. So don't say, yes, I miss the physical classroom and playing games. It's like how online is so routine. But you could say, teaching online doesn't have to be that way, okay? It can be fun. If you like video games, if you like MP3s, you can create all kinds of simple games, simple or complex. So do say, right, everyone, let's play a game. Are you ready, folks? We're going to play a game. And I am utterly mad, I know. So in the chat box, choose a number between 1 and 6, okay? Choose a number between 1 and 6. 4, 5. Between 1 and 6, Nancy. Brilliant. All right. Okay. Remember your number. Got your number? Okay. Got your number? Everybody's got a number. Fabulous. All right. So your number is your team name. Okay. So the number is your team name. So if you chose number 6, you are in team 6. If you chose number 1, you're in team 1. If you chose number 5, you're in team 5. Do you understand? So we're going to play a game that's going to ask you to type into the chat box. But your message should begin with your number. So if I said, name a country beginning with V, you would type 4 if you were team 4, and then put Vietnam. If you were team 3, no, brilliant. Brilliant answer, Kim, straight on there. Got it? So everybody who's in, so when I see 5 answers from one team, so when I see 5 people give me an answer, you'll get a point. Okay, make sense? Here we go. So we do the practice. So let's all practice. Type a number and a word in the chat box. Handsome, thank you. You must be talking about me. Hi, mum. Fabulous. Hello. Cool. Brilliant. All right, here we go then. Cute. There's all these people, all these adjectives. Fab. Great. You ready? So question number 1 is coming up. Question number 1 is coming up. Are you ready? Here we go. Things that are red. Okay, things that are red. Don't forget your team name. I'm gonna go for team 6. So I think team 6 got there first. Team 6 followed by team 1. So team 6, you have 1 point. Are you ready? Team 6, you have 1 point. Are you ready? Number 2. Here we go. Here's the second thing. Don't forget your numbers. Go. So countries beginning with B, S or T. Brazil, 6 is in there. Belgium, 4, 5s, definitely 5. A couple of 6s, 5. Thailand. I'm going to call it for team 5. Team 5. Well done, team 5. So team 6, you have 1 point. Team 5, you have 1 point. Team 1, 2, 3, 4. Come on, let's get a move on. Are you ready? Don't forget your number. An adjective to describe a person. Here we go. Number, nice. Number team 3, straight in there. Team 3's doing well. Number 2s are coming in. Number 4, I'm going to call it for number 1. Well done, team 1. Okay, well done, team one. So that's 6, 5, and 1 with points. Here's the last one, 2 points for the last one. Are you ready? An idiom of more than 4 words. An idiom of more than, like father, like son. That's nice. No pain, no gain. Number 3s. You're getting the number 3s. Number 3. Great idiom. The bigger, the better. Oh no, Oppo, you didn't say what team you're in. Number 3, there we go. Number 3s win. So number 3s get 2 points because that was a difficult one, making them the winner. But well done, everybody. So you can see how easy it is to do a team game in an online room. There are 188 people in the room. If you were my students, obviously I would put you in teams, but here this is just a random way of doing the teams. Yes, you could cheat and change teams if you wanted, but hey, it's not about the team, it is about the activity itself. So did you like the activity? Into the chat box, you can be negative, by the way. What did you feel about that chat box game? Did it work? Was it something you do? Excited, great first adjective. Thank you, V. So you see how a chat box game works, and we can get lots of interaction with it. And I think the chat box is overlooked because the chat boxes you can do so much with in it. I've just picked a few little things here, but actually we've got 2 activities going on. We've got the vocab activity, and we've got your reaction about chat box game. So this is a reflective activity. So there's 2 things we could do with a chat box. And if we think about online, when we online teach, we think about what we can't do, but there's a lot about what we can do as well. And actually, for example, one thing that I think works much better online is the use of video. If you're using a room like Zoom, it's very easy to screen share a video out to your audience. Now, in the classroom, in the physical classroom, when we're doing a video, the video is on the screen, the students are watching the video, and they're probably doing an exercise in their book. It's a very individualistic activity. You will have noticed perhaps that since the world has become locked down, video viewing online has become quite a collaborative thing. You get Netflix parties, you get Facebook watch parties, YouTube watch parties. And this is one of the good things about being online in an online classroom. So rather than give my students that typical watch the video, is it true, is it false activity, we could watch the video and use the chat box. So here are loads of things that we could do with a video where the chat box goes along. So as the students are watching the video, they can they can unfold the task as they go along. And I think that's great. I think that's a really interactive and lifelike experience. So there's a lot of interaction going on, a lot of fun going on there. You can do other things that you probably couldn't do so easily in a physical classroom. So this is an example I saw a couple of weeks ago from Laura Edwards about inviting a virtual guest, inviting somebody to join the class. And look at all the project work and language work that's involved with that. Researching a guest speaker, writing an email to invite them, designing the questions. Hopefully the person will come and they'll do an interview. I think, this would be much more difficult to achieve in the physical classroom. And certainly, you might be in Vietnam, but you could cast your net wide and you could link up with classes and people in other rooms, other countries. You could, there's a lot that can be done with it. And, so I think here the online platform actually makes for a bit of fun or interaction that wouldn't be so easy to achieve in a face-to-face setting. And I've talked about my son already. There he is. And one of the things we shouldn't forget about the online environment is that it's easy. If in your physical classroom you use tools like Kahoot and Quizlet, these work perfectly well online. Okay, obviously the students need 2 devices, but it does work really well if they can. And you can see here my son has a French lesson every week, and my son's doing his French revision of numbers on Kahoot. So my point being about this myth about being fun, if that's a word that we want to use in teaching, the fun is in the creativity, it's in the teacher, and the online platform doesn't really stop that. It just asks us to think about things in other ways. So myth number 7, you don't need books for online teaching. How do you feel about that? Books are still necessary. Myth. Good myth there. Wrong. Just wrong. Brilliant. Myth, untrue. Yeah, and again, I think this is one you see this a lot on the internet, that you don't need books, and I think there's some truth in it and some untruth in it. I think one of the things that's happened is that, of course, schools closed down very quickly, so a lot of students didn't have their books. So as teachers, we had to kind of work our way around that a little bit. So we could prove that we don't need books, but let's look at the don't say. They are very, very important. I wouldn't. So don't say, hurrah, online teachers releases me from the shackles of the curriculum and prescribed materials. Okay, so all the people that don't like course books are like, yay, we can get, but don't say that. I mean, it's obviously rubbish. As Tree says there, we need them to prepare lessons. So I would say, do say, sorry, are you bonkers? Do you know how many classes I have to teach in a week? I mean, just because we're online, you know, we're still teaching our teaching loads. We still need some material to help us. And, you know, I wanted this myth to be in here because in the previous 6 myths, I've done things that haven't required books per se. But that's not to say that I wouldn't use books. You know, if we go in the breakout room, I'd still get the students doing some activities for it. But what we can do, of course, is think about our course book material in different ways and using PowerPoint. We're using the classroom tools. So Oxford University Press, for example, has changed its terms and conditions. So you can use the classroom tools online and use them with it. But you can see how we can still use the course book. And we shouldn't be afraid of setting the students a course book task in front of them. But by using our PowerPoints, by using our images, by using screen share, we can also change the activity so that they can be done in an online way. So here are 2 controlled practice activities taken from course books. So the students would do the exercise in their course book, and then we would look at them on screen together and do the feedback together. So for example, using the chat box again, with that first exercise about where there's a blank space, I'd get the students to type into the chat box. So what's the blank gap for number 1? Okay, so for a job, look, says somebody. And as everybody's gone looking, okay, everybody's gone look, search, okay, apply, okay, nice. So you see how this becomes, how I'm still using the course book material, but I'm using the chat box again to elicit the vocabulary. Again, with my students on microphone, I might ask them to come onto microphone for it. But I've got even in the space of 30 seconds there, I have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different answers. 6, seek, that's a good one. So we then put those answers, look at those answers and decide which are right or wrong. So, you know, in fact, the chat box might give a voice to more students. So I'm still using the course book and I'm still using the course book exercise. But in the classroom, I might be tempted to pick on a student. Can you give me the answer? Can you give me the answer? Whereas here in the chat box, or even if the exercise was done in Google Classroom or something, I might get more students. I might get the quieter students actually answering as well. And we got lots of different answers that we can work with. So yes, use the course book, but also think about how we can adapt that course book as we would in the physical classroom to the online classroom. Just out of interest, on the other exercise, the headway exercise, number 1, are you understanding what I'm saying? Is that correct, grammatically correct? I always have trouble when yes, somebody goes, yes. Is number 1 grammatically correct? 3 no's, wait, I'm waiting. Nope, nope, yes. It's always interesting because I think it's correct, but a lot of people would say it wasn't. It's one of those verbs that should be passive to changing it. Do you understand what I'm saying? That's a possible answer, but are you understanding what I'm saying now? Are you understanding what I'm saying? Are you getting it? Could be correct. All right. So you can see, like, we've got a discussion going on. We're using the coursebook exercises and we're going on. All right. I'm moving towards the end. So myth 8. You have to change your teaching style to be an online teacher. Being an online teacher. Just asking is really fine. You don't have to just use the chat box. You could just ask. So you have to change your teaching style to be an online teacher. True, myth, false, not? It's true for me. Oh, that's interesting. Partly agree. No, I don't think so. Thank you. I'm glad somebody put. I was a bit worried there because there was lots of truth. I wouldn't see why. I admit that there are things that might be difficult. I mean, we do. For example, one of the things that I find very difficult online is staying within my camera. I'm a very, as you might guess, I'm a very energetic teacher, and I like to move up and down the classroom. So I do have to teach myself to stay in that window with it. And I do agree. Oh, that's interesting. Why do you have to prepare twice? That's an interesting one. Could you let me know why you think you have to prepare twice? So, so for me, yes, I have to change my style in that I know I have to become a little bit more rooted to the spot. Yeah, for it. But I still think when I do, if I teach young learners, I could still use puppets. I don't have any puppets here with me. I use a lot of dice, so I still have my dice with me here. I would, as I've shown, I would use personal information. I would use the PowerPoint if I was in a physical classroom. I'd use the course book as a physical classroom. So I think that for me, I don't think the answer, I think it's a myth, because in fact, what I need to be is the teacher my students are used to. And I think that if I'm online and I'm a different person to whom they would see in the physical classroom, that might cause them to become an issue, become nervous. It's great that you become more tech savvy on it. So I think we should try as soon as possible with it. Put the answer, teacher, put the answer in the Q&A and I'll answer it. So you have to change your teaching style to be an online teacher. I would say no. And I would like to, as we come towards the end before I take some questions, I would like to consider, and I work, I'm an academic director in International House, and this is one of the things that we've just had on our social media. And I think we need to remember what teachers have achieved over the last few weeks that we're not getting our credit for. And if it wasn't for us being teachers and being who we were, the world might actually be an even worse place than the mess that it is in. Because by going online and by taking our education and putting it onto the online environment, we're keeping a sense of normality for some people. And that's why I don't think we should change, because we are connecting people. We are helping them get a smile on their face. You know, the students are used to seeing us. We're something that's stable with those. So I think as I come towards an end of this and get ready for some questions, I'd like you to remember that as teachers, we have done a hell of a lot over the last few weeks. And to be honest, as everything else has closed down, we've kept everybody going. So don't change your style online, and remember all the positives that you're bringing to the world. Okay, before we end, it's time to see if you've earned your badge. Are you a top online bluffer or not? Okay, so it is actually possible to buy a badge that says you're a bluffer. So let's see if you can earn your badge, your last chat box activity. Okay, if somebody says, oh no, online teaching, it's not for me. For starters, you can't do blah, 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 blah. So what do we say? Based on what I've just said over the last almost hour, what would the Bluffers Guide be? What would we say as teachers to that person? You are wrong. Good. Why? This is a cheeky reflection activity. What you know, I would say you're a lazy dude. Good answer. Lol. Okay. Anything else? So, a couple of people have earned their badges. Not true. Of course, we as teachers would expect a, but nothing is impossible. One can adjust. Not your case. Well done, Famhong. That's great to say it's not your case. Brilliant. Okay. Just need more motivations. Absolutely. I think the image that I've got for time to jump on the bandwagon. Well done, Michelle. Come and join us. It's a beautiful world online. The online bandwagon is a fun world. We're trained for teaching, so you're not on the same level, dude. Love it. You're not a teacher then. If you say that, then you can't. You're right. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the Bluffers Guide to Online Teaching. What I wanted, for 1 minute, don't, you know, I know that you've been doing this for a few weeks now, so for 1 minute, I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but I hope what my talk has done has reassured you, if anything, given you some, you know, reassured you that we're all in the same boat, B, everybody thinks the same, and if you've had some doubts or issues, then I've tried to give you advice to overcome that. Throughout that, I've tried to give you some practical ideas that you could use in the classroom. And now, hopefully, you're all leaving this talk as new Bluffers and able to embrace that online environment with a renewed sense of confidence. I'm going to take questions, obviously, but as I do that, I would like to remind you tell you a few things. That's my website, if you want it. I have written a book on mobile learning, which is on there. The activity with the pictures is from my book on mobile learning. I also podcast. Some of you, I know some people in Vietnam do my podcast because I see the stats. But if you're interested in my podcast, there it is. It's free to download. And we've just started, me and my team, making some ones about online teaching. So if you want some more ideas, then you can see it there. Okay, thank you so much for listening to me. I think it's probably time to take some questions. So let me stop the sharing. Hopefully you can see me. Hi, I'm back on the big screen. Let's have a look on the questions.
When it comes to the Q&A session, you can type your questions in the Q&A box. Okay, we try to answer as many as we can.
Yeah, I'm going to go for it as much as possible. So I've got a question that says most of my activities are done using the chat box. That's true. It was deliberate because this is a big audience. Yeah, you're 200 people. That's too many people to be able to do on mic, for example. I mean, Zoom will hold 100 people on microphone usually on a very low license, but that becomes a mess with students. But so the activities I did would still work orally. I think what you need to consider when you want the students to speak is how many people you've got in the class and how many times you want the microphone on. So, for example, I teach my students in that first lesson when I was talking about, excuse me, when I was talking about the language I would do in the classroom, I would also have rules for microphone use. So, in Zoom, I would set my, if you use Zoom, you know, in the top, top right, you have speaker view. You can click on it to grid view, and then you can see everybody on camera at the same time. And then I would ask my students to put their hands up physically. I know they could do it in the room, but physically put their hands up if they want to talk. So this way it stops the students talking over each other. But all the activities I have done, today, I would do on microphone if I had a small enough class. The breakout rooms, for example, are where they would interact with each other more often. That would you rather I could do as a classroom activity. The photos of me doing activities I could do on microphone and would do on microphone. If it was a small enough number, that's all I would do it. Say for that one. Okay, so hopefully you just need to give them the space to be able to talk and the right conditions to be able to talk. Somebody asked, do I have to change the way I teach? And I think I've answered that question already. The principles we should tell our students at the beginning of an online class. Well, you will get in the slides that follow up, you'll get a link to what I said. But the principles basically are that in that first lesson, you should treat it the same way you would a physical lesson. That in my first lesson, I would always teach the classroom rules and the classroom language, and I would sorry, I just saw a question pop up and it caught my eye. So I would teach them the rules and the classroom language. Now, the classroom language that they will probably need is two things. So how do I switch on my microphone? Or the other way around, in the request, can I switch on my microphone? So I would go through those principles, teach them the language of that, and also have, I also create a list of can-do statements on a slide. So they simply say, I can switch on my microphone, I can draw on the whiteboard, I can switch on my camera, I can put my hand up. And the students go through those and tick them, okay? So that's what it was. And hopefully the ideas, you'll get the ideas in the recording or in the slides. This is a common question. I tried using breakout rooms with my students, but they keep using Vietnamese instead of English. I patrol each room from time to time, but are there any ways of dealing with it? First of all, I've got to say that I would ask why they're using Vietnamese. This is one of the problems of a monolingual class, of course, the ability to switch into the first language. So, so the question I would ask myself is, why are they using Vietnamese? In the sense of, are they just talking about you know, what they did last night, or are they using Vietnamese to try and solve the puzzle? So if they're using Vietnamese to solve the maths puzzle, then I would say that's an assistance rather than a bad thing. I think sometimes if we insist on everybody speaking English all the time, I'm not one of those people that believes that we should all speak English all the time. I know as a language learner that I would use the languages I would, if I'm my language I speak best is Czech. So I would definitely use English to help me with Czech. So I think that's an important consideration. I would also perhaps use, if you're a believer in kind of stick and carrot, I would also use rewards and tasks for people. If I jumped into a breakout room and heard just Vietnamese, I would probably assign somebody a task for doing that. So, for example, with the photo task that I did at the beginning with the 4 photos of me, it's great with me, but it's great with the students. It's great if the students do that themselves as well. So if there's too much Vietnamese spoken, then those students are the people that will create the task for the next classroom. Okay, does that help with that? I'm not sure if there are any more questions. I think I've done all the ones that have gone into the question and answer box. There was there was a question in the chat box about energy. I drink a lot of coffee. What I remember from Vietnam is the coffee is very good as well. So it is true. I think the serious answer to the energy question is a good one. There is what is called Zoom fatigue, and you'll see a lot written about Zoom fatigue. The research does show that online learning is more tiring than face-to-face learning. So I think one of the problems that one of the things I'm arguing at the moment, in fact, with the university, is that they're changing courses from face-to-face to online. They're trying to replicate the same number of hours face-to-face as they would online. And this is just really, this is not viable. You know, so if you're used to having a 3-hour block online, then sorry, a 3-hour block face-to-face, it might need to be shorter online. That was one thing I would argue. The intensity just is too much with it. There's too much more to deal with. So that's one thing to consider. I think as well that with us, I think there's what I've noticed watching teachers online recently is that there is also this feeling that we need to be on. Just because we're online, we always need to be on. So in other words, that the video is always on, that I'm always taking a part. And I think as teachers, we need to be confident in switching off our camera at some point. And that sounds really odd, but for example, if I wanted my students to do a reading exercise and wanted them to read something in the book, why would I stay on camera? I would switch the camera off so that they focus on they would focus on the reading, not on me. And that's a moment where I can have some downtime. Okay, I don't think we need to be on video and microphone all the time. In class, we would be quiet at some points, and I think that's exactly the same. And I say, I think that's really weird. You probably find that really weird. But if this was a real lesson, you certainly wouldn't see me all the time. Okay, obviously in a webinar you need to see me, but in a real lesson my camera would be going off and on. You'd see me drinking water. I would do that off camera normally with it. So I think that's one of the things that we need to be careful about, the energy. We need to be aware it's more intense. So in fact, less is more. And also don't feel the need to be on all the time, as you would be in the physical classroom. Give the students things to do that take you out of the focus. I hope that gave a good answer to, or gave some reasonable advice to the person who said saving energy with it. Any more questions? As you know, as you can probably see, I like to talk. So if you've got any questions, put them in.
So there are some questions about the recordings. So and the recordings will be posted on our website, and when they are ready, the registered participant will be notified for this.
Great, so you can watch me all over again.
So they want to watch you again.
Wow, right. It's kind of some kind of punishment. You have to watch me twice.
Okay, so I think we don't have any more questions. Okay, so thank you, Mr. Shaun Wilden, and thank you all the participants. We hope that you enjoy our webinar today and will be able to apply the ideas to your teaching practice. Before you finish, please be reminded of the following things. Let me share this screen. Okay, on the screen, you will see some links, right? So these links, so these things are the survey about this webinar, and then the links for you to download your certificate of participation. Remember, these links are available only for 24 hours. So please download your certificate promptly. And the certificates are for registered attendees only. Also, please have a look at our website for the upcoming webinars in registration information. We still have 3 more webinars to come. Again, thank you all, and thanks Mr. Shaun and Oxford University Press. We hope to see you again soon. Goodbye and stay safe.
VUS, your English, your future.